I'm Margaret. Welcome to Knit Pickers in Prince Edward Island. Our studio is located in Mayfield, which is about 5 kilometers south of Cavendish Beach and a couple of kilometers west of North Rustico. Today I'm going to show you the double-sided stockinette stitch. If you're looking for a project that's super easy to knit, doesn't require a lot of thought, and is nice and thick and cushy and doesn't curl, then this is the stitch for you. So to start the double-sided stockinette stitch, you want to cast on an even number of stitches. Now when I say double stockinette, if you take a look at this, you can see the front and the back look exactly the same. It looks like the front side of stockinette. But there's not a curl in sight, and I wish you could feel how beautifully squishy this is. So, after you've cast on your even number of stitches, you start with the yarn in front and you slip the first stitch purlwise. So you go into the stitch as if you're going to purl it, but you just slide that off the needle. Then you bring your yarn to the back, you knit the next stitch, bring the yarn to the front, and slip the stitch purlwise. Yarn to the back, knit the stitch, yarn to the front, and slip the stitch purlwise. And you continue doing that all the way to the end of the row until you end with your last stitch, which is going to be a knit stitch. Now, let's just say, for instance, you're knitting away and the phone rings or something happens and you have to put your knitting down. You walk away, you come back to it and you go, well, doodles, I don't remember where I am. What you want to look for is the purl bump. So you see on each side of the knitting, you'll see your knit stitch and a purl bump, and a knit stitch and a purl bump. So if the next stitch on your needle does not have the purl bump, bring your yarn to the back and knit that stitch. If when you return, the next stitch on your needle has that little purl bump right there, bring your yarn to the front and slip the stitch purlwise. So once again, yarn to the back, knit the stitch, yarn to the front, and slip the stitch purlwise. And I'm going to carry on to the end of this row, and then I'm going to show you how to cast off the double-sided stockinette. Be right back. So here I am, I'm at the last 2 stitches. So I've got my purl bump here, bring the yarn forward, slip the stitch purlwise, yarn to the back, and knit that final stitch. And I should mention that that pattern repeat is exactly the same regardless which side of the knitting you're on. So when I turn my work around, you'll see that my very first stitch has a purl bump. So once again, I'd have my yarn to the front, I would slip that stitch purlwise, knit the stitch, slip this next stitch purlwise because there's my purl bump, the yarn would be in front, bring the yarn to the back and knit the final stitch there. Now to cast off, you're going to follow the same sequence, but we're going to be casting off. So with the yarn in front, I slip the stitch purlwise, I bring the yarn to the back, and I knit this stitch. Then I slide my needle into the first stitch on my right hand needle and slip it over. The next stitch here has a purl bump, so I'm going to bring my yarn forward, slip that stitch purlwise, and then I'm going to bring the first stitch on my right hand needle up and over to cast off, bring my yarn to the back, and knit the next stitch. And slide that first stitch up and over. Traditional cast-off method. The only difference is that every alternate stitch, instead of knitting it or purling it, you're slipping it purlwise. So I'm going to take this right to the end of the row, and I'll be back shortly. So I'm back. I've cast off in pattern all the stitches across. I'm down to my final 2 stitches to cast off. So with my yarn to the front, slip that stitch purlwise, slide it off the needle, bring the yarn to the back, knit that final stitch, and slide that off the needle. Now all you would do is cut or break your yarn, and the reason you want this final stitch to be a knit stitch is because you want to be able to snug that last stitch up when you slide your yarn through the loop. If that was a slip stitch, you wouldn't be able to snug that up. And then you would just take your tail and weave it in. And that is the double-sided stockinette stitch. Identical on both sides. Now I should mention that the double-sided stockinette stitch is a bit of a yarn hog. This is 20 stitches cast on in an Aran weight. Normally that would be quite a bit wider, so the double stockinette stitch narrows things down, and because you're actually knitting each row twice, to get that double thick squishiness, it does use, I would say, at least 50, if not 75% more wool than you might traditionally use. But in the end, it's worth it. So I hope you enjoy trying this stitch, and in the meantime, happy knitting!